Hey HTDA, and welcome back to Dyson Sphere Program. In this hard mode run, we established a pretty nice defense line now with signal towers and a lot of turrets and a lot of battlefield analysis bases to make sure everything stays alive. And honestly, by doing so, I think the hard part is over. Now what I want to do today is turn this mess of a factory into something that's a little bit more organized and actually looks like a factory. And on top of that, I want to get rid of this swarming bunch of dark fog on my planet so I can build my factory in peace. Which is a kind of a strange thing considering we enabled combat mode intentionally and put it on the hardest mode. Anyway, that's not the point. However, before we get into all of that, I want to thank Brandon0109 and Dominic Bucco for supporting the channel by becoming members. So thank you guys very much and enjoy your names in my system. Now, I do want to point out that even though this defense line is very effective, every now and then you get, for example, like here, 2 waves at the same time, and it can still get overrun. So if you see this coming in, you might want to keep an eye on your signal towers. As you can see, mine going down over here, just getting focused fires down. The easy way to defend against that is just deleting them as this wave comes in. The turrets will still take care of the wave, so that's not really the problem, but you just don't want to lose either yourself or the signal towers in the process. Now another thing to watch for, and actually a couple of you pointed out in the comments to me as well, because I wasn't paying enough attention to this myself, is that you need to keep an eye on your power. Now you might think, okay, I have plenty of power right now, but as soon as a wave comes in, the power really spikes up because the turrets start actually working, they're no longer idle. And if your turrets are working at 75% power, that's the same as with your factory. There's no point in having the other quarter of your turrets there if they're not actually firing, because all your turrets are firing at 75% speed. So, long story short, power, power, power. Make sure that all your defenses are actually powered if you want them to take full advantage of them. Another thing, and this is a little bit more specialized, is that you can set the configuration of the priority for your front and back turrets slightly different. Now again, a couple of you pointed this out in the comments as well. I have actually been doing this every now and then. I actually just forgot to mention it. But setting the front turrets to the ground units and the back turrets to the air is typically what I see working very well. It doesn't actually matter too much which priority you set the front and the back turrets, as long as it's a different priority, so your different turrets are shooting at different units all the time. It's just an efficient way of taking them out. I haven't had much success with the Supernova, honestly, but you could also try and take advantage of that. Just keep in mind that if you change the priority of your turrets to, say, whatever, you can also just copy paste them like you can in your buildings in your factory. Now, in the meanwhile, what I actually also did was upgrade my science facility a little bit, especially the red science part of it, just to make sure I can process all that incoming science a little bit more efficiently. And I'm also working on basically just researching whatever is related to drops, because of course, as more as you unlock, the more drops you will get from the dark fog itself. Yes, it is also tied to level, but stuff won't actually drop from the level of fog that you have if you haven't researched it. Some things actually do. It's a little weird. The best thing I can say about that is it seems to work like this. If you have a building unlocked that actually requires that specific type of process material, it will actually start dropping, assuming of course your dark fog is high enough level, or if you unlock the research that actually unlocks that specific material as well. Now, one neat thing that you can do that I'm not entirely sure everyone is actually doing is you can just jump into a sandbox game like I have over here. If you're playing in the combat mode, you might need to make a new sandbox game that's actually combat enabled, because otherwise you will have the old recipes. But what this allows you to do is just build a layout that you want to implement in your factory. Like over here, I have this entire layout dedicated to making 2 missiles per second. That's it. It actually requires quite a bit of resources, as you can see, and actually quite a lot of building, so you don't want to build this under a lot of stress of attacks, where you either mess up the math, you mess up your belts, you end up running back and forth to this facility like a billion times in between. Just build it in a sandbox, make a blueprint, assuming you of course have unlocked the blueprint, and then just paste it into your game in the actual combat game, and you can just build it. It's not really cheating. I mean, you can make blueprints as many times as you want anyway, but it will keep you sane. Now, honestly, it's kind of ironic that the first actual factory that I'm building in this factory game, I mean, this doesn't really count. This is not really what I consider to be an actual factory. The first thing I'm actually building is the missile line that I just showed you. Where is it? What did I name it? Oh, missile from basics. So this is actually from raw resources. So that is Quite convenient. We'll put it like here. And of course, don't forget to use your battlefield analysis bases in order to help you out with actually constructing this, because otherwise this is going to take forever. Now, I do have to say there is something very liberating about just being able to stay away from your defense line and actually building a factory again. On top of that, I don't actually have to worry about these bases starting to attack this, because again, we have the signal towers for that, so we can be sure that everyone will be attacking over here, and we can just expand a little bit and take the resources. We actually need resources from pretty much all over the place. You need so much copper for everything. And for some reason I managed to find a seed where actually all the copper, let me show you. That's not what I meant. All the copper is like on this side of the planet, with the exception of a little bit of iron here. And then all the iron is down here with no copper inside. So it's a really annoying type of seed, because ideally you won't want a little bit of mix between copper and iron. So you can combine the two. But hey, we'll work with what we have. There we go, look at that. It's actually starting to look like a factory over here. So we have a lot of resources coming in over here in terms of iron. Then we need to funnel that into the missiles. Why are the circuit boards not coming in? Because I'm not actually exporting the circuit boards to anywhere, apparently. How is this working? The answer is it's not, because this belt is supposed to be the outgoing belt. Look! Even in the sandbox mode, apparently, I still make silly little mistakes like this. And then we need to bring that in. And where was this supposed to go? Not over here. Oh man, I'll actually have to redesign this, because I actually need to fit in another belt over here. Okay, so never mind me, I'm an idiot apparently, but now look, we have the missiles in production, and it's actually a pretty fast production, and that's very intentional, because we're going to need oodles and oodles and oodles of missiles for pretty much everything from this point onward. Not only can we actually use it in the base defense, but we can also use it to take the planetary bases off our planet, but after that we also need to start invading other planets, and again, rockets are just basically the way to go for pretty much everything. And if at any point we actually get attacked from space, again, rockets, rockets, rockets. So actually we'll reach a point, I think, near the end of the episode where we actually won't need the other turrets anymore. We can actually do everything by missile, but I just want to make sure we never ever run out of missiles. So you can actually see a pretty large stockpile. I've completely shifted over from using sorters to fill my boxes to just using the splitters. I am not entirely sure why I kept resisting against this layout for so long. I still think it looks a little bit goofy, but it's actually a lot more sleek looking from another angle if you overlook the whole mushroom thing going on. I've really started to appreciate that. So for all of you that have been telling me for about 2 years now probably that I should be using this, okay, you guys, you win. Now my mini mall over here is slowly getting expanded as well. Again, I'm just dumping in the resources we need into this box. So what do we need? We need some engines, we need some circuit boards. So we have all of those. We needed some steel, I believe. What was the other one we need? Engines. Oh, apparently I picked up some engines along the way as well. Honestly, if you can make like 50 or so of these, you're going to have plenty for this planet, and then maybe like 50 more to invade other planets as well. I'm just picking random numbers here, but you don't need to automate this other than just making it a little bit more convenient by putting stuff in a box so it actually auto-produces itself. Okay, so you can pretty much put down your missile turrets wherever you want, of course, because they can reach anywhere on the planet thanks to signal towers. But I recommend keeping them somewhat close to the rest of your base, especially because that just makes the defense a little bit more sleek. Now, more to the point, maybe you want to keep it close to where you're actually producing your missiles, because of course this is where the missiles are going to go. Now, I'm actually going to make a belt just from this missile building section right in here to this box. And then I'm going to use these splitters to spread them out across all these rockets. Now, rocket launchers, I should say. Now, the first box is actually going to have a completely open storage, so you can stock up any surplus of rockets we have in here. But then all the other boxes are going to have a more limited storage. So all this is actually doing is buffer a little bit of missiles initially, so that if we're actually firing missiles, all the different rocket launchers are going to get initially filled from their own little supply over here. Why? Well, because if we have a belt coming in here and we're splitting half of the missiles to here and then half to here, then all the way down the line over here, we're actually not going to get in too many missiles. Now you can solve that in a lot of different ways, so you can save me the comments on that. I like my simplistic layouts, as you know, but just keeping a couple of these boxes in here like so. Just make sure that that kind of takes care of itself, assuming you have enough production of missiles. This doesn't actually work that efficiently if you have a relatively low production of missiles, so yeah, that's why we're producing 2 per second. On a random side note, some of these hives are passing by so close to my planet and they look extremely intimidating with these huge fleets around them and all these ships patrolling in here. You would almost think like all these ships should aggro to my base or something. I'm glad they don't, because we wouldn't last for more than a few seconds. Now, while I'm making some building preparations, I actually want to do something else as well. We have this filter that I made in the previous playthrough that we can probably place down somewhere like over here maybe. And I'm going to use that to actually filter out all of these items that I have now sitting in my battlefield base. Some of them are actually getting quite full. And as you can see, we have tons and tons of resources in here that we've gathered from all of these endless waves of units coming in. So that's actually something to consider. Once you take care of the dark fog, you're not going to get these resources anymore. So you will need to become self-sufficient. Probably not a bad thing in a factory game, but still something to keep in mind if you have been relying on those resources. And a look at that belt of resources coming in. Now, this is only a Mark 1 belt, so it's not going to fill up really fast. And for those of you that didn't watch my previous playthrough, it's just a simple splitter that is set to a specific unit. All the different types of materials have their own little box. And then basically we have a sushi belt coming in that just draws from all the battlefield bases, as you can see over here. As you can see, we have way more materials being put on the belt than we can currently process. But it's actually not going to be a problem, because if we're not actively harassing the planetary bases, even with the 180 units coming in every now and then, we are actually going to be able to completely draw all the resources from these battlefield analysis bases with even a Mark 1 belt. So weird as that might sound, it's actually not that hard to keep all the resources on check, and you actually get less resources than you might think. Oh, and as a side note, you might be wondering why these ghostly things are on top of here. These are just the logistic distributors that I can't actually make, although I think we researched them. Did we? I can't remember. Nope, we didn't yet, so I can't actually make them yet. You actually need a fair amount of processors for that as well in order to actually make use of that, and there's no point in making that because we aren't really automating too much at this point in time. We will soon, just not right now. Okay, so I have about 30 battlefield analysis bases, something 20 like signal towers, and then a whole bunch of turrets. And that's plenty to actually do the offensive that I want to do towards the enemy bases. However, actually doing so is not completely trivial. For one, as soon as you start firing missiles at these, they will actually aggro, you will get a lot of threat, they will start launching waves at you. In other words, you better be ready to defend yourself, which is not necessarily a problem because, again, our turrets can take care of that, but they will actually start attacking the signal towers that you're using to get the turrets, the rocket launchers in range of this. So that is actually pretty hard because you don't have the turret. So what you want to do, I think, is build a secondary base in order to launch your attack from, which could look something like this. So again, it's the same principle. So we have the battlefield analysis bases on the outside. The signal towers are going to go in between here, but if I put them in here, my power is actually going to connect. They will turn on, and then we'll draw the dark fog, which is kind of not the point until we're ready and good to go. What I'm doing is actually building the secondary base on the opposite side of where the waves are going to. So the waves are going to go in this direction to my base. As you can see, my rockets are making the defense trivial at this point. I'm barely even getting damaged over here. But what I'm actually doing is I'm just setting up the base over here. As you can see, all the waves are completely ignoring this base right outside of their homes. And just set up, make sure this is all ready to go. And now we have a kind of a forward station that we can use to launch our offensive from. Now, of course, we're going to need a lot of ammunition for that, and that just means making a ridiculously long belt from our current existing production. We actually have so much ammunition in production, we are not using that much anymore because the rockets are doing most of the work, that as you can see, the production of the ammunition is completely backed up so we can leech from that and have that routed to our secondary base. Okie dokie, the ammunition is now coming in all the way from the other side of the planet. We have everything loaded up with ammunition. We can start putting in some power poles over here and then start putting in the signal towers in between. And at that point, it's good to keep in mind that all the waves will then be coming to this defensive point. Not really a problem, assuming you have enough turrets and ammunition here. And that also means that we at that point want to start launching our attack in the other direction. Okie dokie, we have the signal towers up, we have the battlefield analysis bases up, and then from that point on, it's just a matter of just slowly starting to expand the actual defenses like this. Now you will get attacked. The battlefield analysis bases you should be using to make sure your signal towers stay alive. As you can see, there are several buildings being taken out already. That will trigger quite a few attacks from the dog park most likely. So if you see a large attack like this coming in, you might want to be ready to delete your signal towers. There's no point in leaving them to die, although it doesn't actually seem to be all that bad, honestly. So far, so good. If you feel like you're comfortable expanding, if you feel like comfortable expanding a little bit further, then you just place another one. And now we might be in a little bit of trouble. Yeah, let's just retreat for a moment. Just to make sure we don't die ourselves in the process as well. Have our turrets take all of that out. And as soon as everything comes down a little bit again, like we see right now, then you just start putting back the turrets like so. And you basically just rinse and repeat. Now, just having enough of these turrets and battlefield analysis spaces makes this a lot easier because you don't want to run out halfway into this progress. Now, we should see the core being taken out right there. Ooh, I actually lost some stuff there. Yeah, but you can see the core is destroyed, so that actually means that this base will no longer launch attacks against us until that core is actually rebuilt. They will rebuild it as long as you don't take down the planetary base. And we just repeat this process towards the other bases as well. Now, I actually had to fly back to my home base a little bit because, as you can see, a lot of stuff on the back got destroyed. Now, why does this happen? As soon as you start like actively attacking the bases, sometimes the bots get a little bit confused. They start attacking you. They start like kind of fanning out across the planet every now and then. Some of them seem to be kind of getting lost. Basically what happened is I actually only got like 4 or 5 bots for whatever reason getting stuck at the back of my base, and they slowly started taking out my facilities over here. Now all it took was just putting down a signal tower in the back of my base. I should probably have done that before I attacked, but yeah. Yeah, just make sure that if you see that happening, keep an eye on whatever is being damaged, because if you see a lot of red buildings popping up, probably a couple of them got through and you need to go and deal with that. That said, as soon as you take out the last few buildings on each of these bases, nothing happens anymore. I highly recommend that you do not put your rocket launchers to aim for high air, because that will actually take down the relay stations themselves. If you do that, the hives get really angry about that, so keep that in mind. They actually rebuilt the base over here, so let's put down one of those. As you can see, it's very easy, just keep them under control like this. Now this does give you a little bit of threat with the hives, but as long as you are not actually attacking the relay stations, you can pretty much keep this up forever. Now, of course, I do want to build some geothermals. I actually didn't research that yet. I'm working on that right now. It's pretty expensive research actually to do. But as soon as you have that, you can do that. If you want, you can also just fill in the gaps. You need some foundations for that. But honestly, I would just use them towards power, because why wouldn't you? It's like free power. Oh man, do I want to go and redesign this entire factory. Not only is it like filled with windmills, honestly it's a pretty efficient power source at this point, so it's not the worst looking considering we actually can build them on top of the oceans now. But there's not really much factory going on here at all. On top of that, the main thing we do have going on, which is a lot of turrets, we actually don't need them anymore. So we don't need all these signal towers hogging our power, all these battlefield analysis bases doing the same. We can pretty much just take out all of this, as long as we keep the bases under control and at some point probably take them out. All the defense we need is our rockets, because as soon as we see any units inside, all we need to do is plop down a signal tower in range of that, and everything will get obliterated. So we actually don't need the ammo production anymore either. Basically, we pretty much don't need anything of the stuff that we've built so far, but we can actually start redesigning a planet so we are actually self-sufficient and producing all the base materials ourselves. Okay, so step 1, demolish all the defenses. And since I now actually researched the geothermals and built a couple of them, we can start placing them on the patches that are left behind by the bases. There we go. And as you can see, you get a huge amount of power from that. This is, I think, going to be about 20 megawatts. Yeah, 19.6, so that's insane. And it's going to give us a very nifty power boost. And then we can start using all that power towards actually making a factory. Now, honestly, it's very tempting to just go default mode like we used to do before and start building malls and stuff like that. You can if you want. I honestly don't think at this particular point in time, if you're doing a similar playthrough like I'm doing with the more aggressive Dark Fog, this is not your first focus. You're not still going to be building huge factories and stuff like that, mainly because we actually now do not have any access to titanium and silicon because that's on the other planets, so we're going to need to secure that for ourselves. We do have a little bit of everything because we got that from the Dark Fog. There should be some things like titanium and silicon, as you can see, titanium and silicon in our little filter over here, but we're not getting any new units coming in. So there's no point in making a huge factory on this planet until we secure those resources. On the other hand, what is very useful, other than producing the science that we can, is making a little bit of a layout for things like shells. We haven't actually used the implosion cannons just yet, but they're super effective for clearing out the other planets as well. And all you need to do is get some copper going on. We're going to need some of these combustibles. And other than that, we're going to have a way to repurpose that iron that copper that we have close by that was initially being used for all the ammunition for our turrets, which we no longer need. So we can repurpose that to make some other ammunition to start the offense on the other planets. Now, something I do want to do is start using some of my previously made blueprints, specifically this one. This is going to make things like turbines and some of the other basics, just like prisms and stuff like that. We can put that probably somewhere like over here. And then we can just get in a few belts of all the base materials and start working on that. Now, of course, don't forget, I've set this to boredom of everyone probably at this point. But what you can actually do is use the battlefield analysis bases for that. But I also really like using the signal towers to supercharge myself and or the battlefield analysis bases in order to never have to worry about power. Now, of course, you still want to carry around whatever you can in order to burn. But these things are super useful in order to recharge yourself, and they're actually way more efficient than doing that with the smaller version. So yeah, I'm starting to fall in love with signal towers for several reasons. And that looks something like this. Now, actually, I replaced all the sorter boxes with the splitter boxes. It looks pretty organized. I think the whole purpose of this is not to build anything in particular, but just have some production of everything going on in the background, that if for whatever reason we need to grab some of the more advanced stuff, we don't actually have to handcraft them and we can't rely on the Dark Fog anymore. Just stick to the turbines. You don't need to worry about the magnetic rings, I think, at this point. Although, if you want, you could also add a little bit of that to this as well and start building those on top of whatever you're already producing. Now, something else I want to start producing is pretty much anything that has to do with chemicals. So a couple of things like diamonds. We also want to make sure we have some acid in production, things like that. Mainly because we can, again, start storing that up just in case we need them later on. We will need it later on. But I actually want to make sure that the storage tanks of refined oil are being used for something, because otherwise this production line is going to grind to a halt at some point. Now, you can just delete the refined oil if that's what you want to do. But that's so wasteful, so we might as well just put that to use in a little build like this. To give you a better idea of what it looks like and what we're actually doing here, it's nothing particularly complicated. We're just making some acid over here that's going to go into the storage tank over here. As you can see, this backs up. These are producing some graphene over here and graphite over there and some diamonds just because we can. And then we're making plastic and organic crystals. This is pretty much as far as we can get in terms of basic productions without actually having access to things like silicon and titanium. Could you make another layout making more complicated stuff? Probably, but it's not really needed at this point because we just want to get to the other planet as well. Now, keep in mind, and you may have already seen me producing them, you might want to invest in a couple of planetary shield generators as well. just to make sure that you can plop them down somewhere in between your buildings. Try to keep it a little bit central like this, so we can start building up a shield that as soon as we start invading the other planets, we have our defenses ready. Again, as long as you have at least one signal tower and some missile turrets on your planet, you can pretty much do your entire defense with that. As you can tell, we haven't actually gotten any new planetary bases just yet. They will start landing at some point, but they actually don't come in at a very high rate. So in all the time that I spent building this, we haven't actually seen a relay station approaching us just yet. So no need to panic. At this point, the game kind of turns into Zen mode again, until we actually start invading the other planets, which is what we're going to do next time. That's pretty much on my bucket list for this entire update. Making a blueprint, plopping it down on a planet and seeing the planet get exterminated. It was actually in one of the trailers that the developers made, and I can't wait to try it out for myself. I actually haven't really done that because on the easier modes, all you need to do is just put down a couple of rocket launchers and a signal tower and they take everything out. But we're going to need a lot more than that on this mode. I hope you enjoyed this slightly longer episode, and if you did, make sure you like and subscribe. If you're still here, you're awesome. And I do hope to catch you in the next one.